Edina Ocsko is working for the Smart Villages, which actually represents many of you in the reality. And I think she's on video, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, hello. Tell me if you can hear me fine.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Good afternoon to everyone, and it's a great pleasure to be with you, although it's only online, and I'm really sorry for that. I'd love to be there with you in person. But anyway, I'm really grateful for the opportunity and the cooperation, and I think what I will present will resonate a lot with the introduction that we heard. So I was really glad to hear that rural communities were mentioned. So this is what I will talk about here. So you are seeing hopefully the slides. I hope so. Anyway, I'm talking about mostly two projects that my company 40 Group is leading with other partners. It's just as we heard, it's a preparatory action supported by the European Commission. So these are two separate projects, but I'd like to talk about both of them because it happens that we are actually coordinating both. So just to say a very few words about smart villages and how they came about, although many of you might have heard about it already. But there has been an EU action on smart villages back in 2017, and this was initiated by the European Parliament and then taken up successfully by the European Commission. So at the time, of course, there has been already many smart villages across Europe, but the concept itself, formulated in such a form, was new when it was launched through the EU action. And as we say in Hungarian, I'm originally from Hungary, that sometimes this reverse order, so it's a bit like preparing the code to the button. So there we had a shiny nice button, smart villages as a concept, but nobody really understood at the beginning like what it exactly means and what it should entail in practice. So because of that, there were a series of actions launched by the European Commission to help to clarify this notion, and then in a more practical terms, and again, I can fully sympathize with those statements on how we can make these things practical and also influence policy decisions to support smaller communities. The European Commission has launched a series of actions. The first one was a pilot study, which precisely is called Smart Eco-Social Villages. So it's not just on smart, it's smart eco-social villages. Some words are missing there. And the purpose of this was to come up with a definition and also with a few case studies and best practices. And then there were two so-called preparatory actions on smart rural areas in the 21st century, the first one and the second one. And no wonder that we tried to shorten the title to make it more personal. So the first project was called Smart Rural 21. And it was running, it started in December 2019 and it's still running, it's finishing this year. And the second project we are also coordinating, it's shortly called Smart Rural 27, it's the second preparatory action. And this is running from December 2020 until next year, end of year. So these are a series of actions that the European Commission launched to make the smart villages happen. So let's come just for a second to the definition. And this is what the study came up with, but it can differ from country to country. So it might not be the same in each member state. So it's kind of a recommendation. But in the smart villages context, villages is an term that's not used everywhere. So it might be more precise to call smart rural communities or rural communities or smart rural communities. And essentially, those are the ones who use innovative solutions to build on their local strengths and opportunities. So in a classical way, using a smart village strategy. Now, the emphasis in the smart villages concept is really on the participatory approach. So really it should be done with the engagement of the local community. And digital technology is mentioned as a possibility, but it's not necessarily just the single and central focus of innovation, because we often refer to social innovation as well, which is of course connected to the participatory approach. But what's very important that in the smart villages context, it might be slightly less digital, although we are of course experiencing with a lot of digital technologies. The reasons are multiple. It was quickly realized that the connectivity issue might be an issue in some of the rural areas, so they don't equally have access to internet the same way. We shouldn't leave the lagging behind regions further behind just because they might not have access to technology. And also the social aspect is important. Sometimes there is no sufficient critical mass, like in the case of smart cities, for instance, to introduce certain digital solutions. Yet it's a very important part of the concept we need to focus on, but maybe it needs a different, slightly different approach from what we have in the smart cities context. So what these projects are trying to do is really to operationalize, if you'd like, this more theoretical definition. And we've been working very actively with a series of local communities. Just to say that the first project, so the Smart Rural 21, really aimed at supporting villages across Europe to develop smart village strategies, but also to take action, very practical, concrete, innovative actions on the ground. So this is what the first project did, and to draw some lessons and make policy recommendations on that basis. And of course, there are many similarities in the Smart Rural 27, which starts to map the situation on smart villages, where are they located, what are the strengths, what is the policy framework, and so on. And then it really aims to prepare member states to develop a more effective smart villages policy support framework. And I think there is still a lot to do in that regard, which of course would be really nice to discuss with you further. So in the Smart Rural 21 project, we were just selecting 21 villages. It was foreseen that we should select according to the terms of reference that we had 17, but there was a huge interest across Europe. It was a bit imbalanced. There were much more actually from Portugal, Spain, and Italy than from other countries, but we received over 730 applications to be part of this project, which really shows the huge interest among rural communities in the smart approach. At the end, we selected a slightly larger number, which of course resonates also a bit with the title of the project. So we managed to support 21 villages to develop their strategies and take action. But what's more important, that we are in touch with many of the applicant villages, because we really didn't want to just let them or leave them out from this project. We really try to engage them through a series of additional activities like smart morning cafes, where we discuss different village approaches. They do cross visits to each other, which we support financially, and so on. So this is just to reflect the huge interest. This is the process of the project, and I won't go into this. I just wanted to give it to you as a snapshot to see what we are doing in this project, starting in the middle to select the villages and then to support them, organize cross visits, a series of capacity building events. And of course, this take action bit is very, very important, where we actually realize on the ground, small scale, but still on the ground projects with these communities. If you'd like, of course, you can check this in more details, and I'm happy to share information, but I don't want to go into this. I'd rather just transfer some of the key messages for this event, which I think are very important, that I think there are a lot of support frameworks, as we heard from Eddie, a lot of supporting structures, programs, funding measures that seem to be suitable for smart rural communities. But when we actually look at the funding schemes, it often turns out that many of this funding actually does not reach, the funding sources do not reach the local communities. There might be several reasons for that, but it's kind of a bit of a fact. We did a number of analysis based on different community projects that we had, like what they were funded from. And there seems to be a picture which says that often cohesion policy, even regional development fund, might not reach to a huge extent the villages, but of course there are very good examples when they do. Even within the European Fund for Rural Development, it's mostly the leader modular approach, if you heard about that, that communities have access to. So this is where I was saying that we should really still do a lot to match the policy with the needs of the member states, with the needs of the villages, to design member state policies that match these interests. So this is one key message that I would like to convey, and this is what we are really trying to do through this project. So this is kind of a utopistic image that once we designed, because in an ideal world, the villages should not, and rural communities, or be it cities, should not care about like which funding source they are receiving funding from. It's rather like there should be a multi-funded approach to smart villages, and these approaches to realize these integrated strategies that they have. And I'm really glad to hear that many DGs are cooperating on this at the European Commission level. So there is strong commitment, and this event is actually also a representation of this cooperation that we are doing with different entities. So how you can get involved maybe, or please keep us in your mind. We are, from policymakers, we are really looking for cases. We are searching for policy lighthouse examples that can demonstrate that rural communities can be supported by EU funds. We are setting up a European Smart Villages Observatory, and you are more than welcome to get engaged in some of those exchanges if you are interested. And here are my details in case you would like to get in touch or would you like to hear more about these projects. We might even have the final event in Portugal, which is a nice coincidence. So I hope we can cooperate with many of you on that event at the end of September. And if you want to be kept in the loop, please keep visiting the Smart Rural 21 or Smart Rural 27 website. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Edina, and please stay with us for a while, because I'm going to do something different than what the program says, rather than announce the next person. So I hope it's okay, Marcos. But a question to you. I mean, you've heard a number of speakers now, and I think particularly Edina is very close to the work that you're doing in the rural areas. Do you have messages to either Carmen and myself, to Edina? Francesca is hopefully still there as well, or questions that sort of came to you while you were listening to the people? I know it's a bit tricky, you weren't expecting this, but it is the opportunity to do so.